Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
David, I appreciate you being here, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is when the opportunity arose to have you on, and then you said, "Yeah," I was pretty happy.
No,
I'll let you know that
you do a lot of cool stuff. I've been after Rocco kind of mentioned about it, and I looked into everything, and I've had a couple other mutual friends that between you and I,
yeah.
and just looked into it then, and my. As I want to get into the podcasting world with some other things I have going on, you have one of the best setups I've seen. So kudos to you. Yeah,
thank you.
For sure.
It's eclectic, and that was my biggest concern. I'm thinking, oh my God, a designer's going to come in here and get the first glimpse of the studio. And I had James Hoke on earlier, and he loved it. I'm thinking, no, what a minute. It's so eclectic and so weird and odd that I didn't know from your eye.
Yeah.
Was it too much? Was it too little? Was it odd? Is it weird?
It's perfect. Literally nothing I would change. Huh? Yeah. It's tastefully designed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Tastefully?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
Okay. As my wife would say, it looks like a big 10-pound dump truck of shit that just got dumped in here, but I like it.
No, it's cool.
People seem to be rather comfortable.
Hell of a job here for sure.
Appreciate it, buddy. So talk a little bit about COVID, man. How you doing?
COVID's been crazy. Since this whole thing started, it has completely shaken up my business. So I'll be honest, I've read more in the last 10 months, 11 months. I've studied more history, politics, society, the way people think, the way people move, because this is such a change in my business. And obviously with events being shut down for 10 months, our business got whacked pretty hard. So I had to figure things out, and I just wanted to educate myself on why things are happening, what's really happening, and all the other stuff.
Did you figure it out? Maybe you can share it with me.
I have a pretty good idea. Half the people would probably hate me for speaking about it, but I tell a lot of people this, and I had this conversation with somebody really close to me the other day. The frustration that I have with everything is so many people's lives were not impacted by this. They're working from home now. They're inconvenienced. They're not impacted, right? So they have to wear a mask when they go out. Dinners are, it's harder to get a dinner somewhere, but their financial side did not get touched. Now they actually don't have to go to an office and do anything. So from that standpoint, what do they have to complain about? But the people that have been devastated in the entertainment world, in the event world, in the restaurant world, all the way down to, our business for suits, people don't go anywhere now, so why are they buying anything? So it pisses me off when you really see some people that are so adamant on like, hey, just do this or do that, but like you don't know what anybody else is going through. And the fortunate side is we've been able to pivot and make things work, but there's a lot of industries that there's only a few people that are going to survive those. And I think the restaurant industry is going to get absolutely demolished here over the next couple weeks. I'm fearful that I'm assuming by Monday or next week or something, there's going to be a pretty severe lockdown in Pennsylvania. You feel bad. You feel bad for these people.
We have a mutual friend, Rocco Koza, who's been on the show multiple times, and we usually talk about the topics of the day. That's what Rocco and I do. Not professing that we do that. I want your story today. But in our conversations on that point, one of the observations that we both or conclusions that we both came to was that what's so interesting about what's happening now is that, typically the divide in this country was usually, unfortunately, with politics left or right. With the pandemic was a little different in the beginning. It was those people that still had their jobs or had a source of income. Because those folks were like, oh, we need to shut down and we need to wear masks and we need to make sure we're all safe. Okay. But those who didn't, they wanted to be safe, but at the same time, they needed to keep working. They needed to keep their businesses afloat. They needed to keep a way of living. So you had the haves in the pandemic era, the haves and the have-nots. That was the divide, and that kind of crossed at the early on political lines. It really didn't fall down philosophy. It fell down the line of opportunity, maybe. And
I think a lot of that too is in the beginning, I didn't know if you were going to go outside and inhale something and keel over and die. Like there was so much back and forth, and that's the problem with all politicians is, I don't want to say this because I don't want people to react this way, and like just tell us the truth and let human beings make the decision on how to live their own life. That it's just. There's always agendas, and as I've grown my business, it's a lot easier for me to be successful now than it was 5 years ago, and that's because we've worked hard, we've proven ourselves, and we made relationships. So I couldn't imagine if I had billions or hundreds of millions of dollars, how easy it is to manipulate things and how easy it is to get what you want. And you throw somebody a $20 million, $5 million, $100,000, whatever it is. I mean, there's the corruption in politics. I don't care what anybody says, is so big and so real. And the same thing in business. It's the same thing. It's all the way down to a PTA school board or whatever in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, local municipalities, township buildings. Human beings, I mean, they're the demise of Earth. And we're a greedy...
it's human nature.
Yeah.
It's human nature. They look out for... Unfortunately, I think there is a... not even a feeling. There's a way about humans that look after their own self-preservation first, almost with most at any cost.
Right.
And that will rear its ugly head in moments of desperation.
Yeah. Well, look. I always my one business partner, Derek. He's incredible. He very similar viewpoint on life. He always says, he's like, look at animals. He goes, animals eat when they're hungry. They kill when they're scared. Outside of that, they're good. Human beings, hey, there's a snowstorm coming. Let's buy all the toilet paper and get the fuck out of here. It's so think about that. Just if you
I don't understand that. I was hoping you'd give me some clarity on that because Rocco couldn't give me any clarity. No one can give me any clarity.
It's human beings and the nature that we have inside of us, and unfortunately, that the majority of people think that way, which is just crazy.
Yeah, to hoard toilet of all things, man. I mean, wouldn't you want food first?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really worried about wiping my ass.
Yep. How often do you go to the bathroom, right?
I want to eat first, right? Doesn't make any sense to me at all. But when you first heard that we were going to get locked down, I think it was early March. It
was March 13th, I think, was the Friday.
Yeah, so number one, where were you? What was going on business-wise for you? And then... did you feel the impact immediately? Did it take a couple weeks?
Yep. So it's crazy. So I travel every week for work, and so I'm all over the country every single week doing different things, usually in the bigger cities, Miami, New York, LA, Chicago. And that week on Sunday, I drove to Washington, D.C. because I had to do an event with WWE Wrestling. I was doing a really big project with The Undertaker.
Okay.
And so then that event was Monday. So I drove down Sunday, had the event Monday. Tuesday morning, I flew out to Los Angeles. I had dinner with the COO of Capitol Records and the Keith Nelson, the gentleman from Buck Cherry. Had that dinner on Tuesday. Wednesday, I flew to Miami. So I was literally day to day bouncing around. I was in Miami Wednesday, Thursday, and then
we were exchanging text messages. I think when you were in Florida, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Recently, yeah. And then so that week I was literally in the 4 biggest hot spots in the country with COVID.
Right.
And it was really weird because, I remember flying in LA and it was just, you looked at people. It was the airports were starting to be a little bit more desolate. There was tension. Because there was so much unknown. And people weren't walking near each other. You were kind of tiptoeing around the airport, but nobody knew what was happening. So it wasn't like, get the hell away from me, but it was like, does this person have something? Does that person have something? And masks weren't implemented at that point either.
Right.
So that was a really eerie time for me. And then I flew back to Pittsburgh on March 13th, which was a Friday, I think, right around that time frame. And then Monday is when the lockdown happened. For me, it was 12 days of doing absolutely nothing when the first severe lockdown happened, and I actually loved it. It was the first time in 7 years that I could slow down, and I was forced to slow down. So it actually was like, holy hell, this feels really, really nice. And then by day 10, day 11, day 12, you start feeling useless, and you're like, okay, this is not who I am. I got to, it's going to be over in a month. Okay, cool, whatever. And at that point, I think everybody had their eyes set on, okay, it's the end of March. Maybe it goes through April, but by Memorial Day, everything's going to be good, right?
Flatten the curve, right?
Yeah. And as none of that stuff really happened, you start realizing, okay, business is not going back to normal. And what we ended up doing is once they shut us down, I think on April 4th or April 3rd, whatever that Thursday was, I just contacted my team, my 2 marketing partners, and I was like, hey guys, what do you think about starting a brand new company that sells face masks? Because we have our manufacturing in Thailand, so I knew and had access to stuff that was going on in China and Thailand and things of that nature. Thankfully, Thailand was like not touched at all. I think they had 2,000 cases at the time, so it was the only country in the world where nothing was disrupted. It was beautiful that we were fortunate to do our manufacturing there, and we just said, hey, why don't we try to sell face masks? So what we did was we came up with the idea on a Thursday at about 2:00. And we, within 24 hours, turned our entire manufacturing line and capabilities over from making high-end clothing to taking the materials for dress shirts and making face masks out of those. So we literally came up with the idea on a Thursday, 24 hours, built a company without having any idea if we could actually accomplish this.
Separate company.
Yeah, so it was called David Allen Masks. And I wanted to brand it under David Allen because of the success we've had with the clothing line.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to start a whole new company because I thought, hey, I could probably make a boatload of money doing this by myself, but it would be really, really challenging. Or I could split this with 2 of my marketing business partners, and they're the ones that are just incredibly talented at what they do, more than I could ever do in a marketing branding standpoint.
Right.
And this was one of those, hey, don't be greedy. Take care of your team. They've been awesome to you for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't be doing anything without them. And I called them, and that's who I had the conversation with. And they were like, "Yeah, let's party and let's see if we can get it done."
Okay.
And the first night that we launched was a Friday or Saturday morning. Within 24 hours, we did about $58,000 in sales. And I was like, okay, and that was with no marketing. That was with no advertising. That was one post that I posted on Facebook.
Wow.
That just got an absurd amount of shares.
Wow.
And at that time it was crazy because
I remember seeing it.
It was it was, I was getting kicked in the ass for a couple weeks pretty aggressively by people because I told my marketing partners, like, I'm the face of this, right? My name and my brand is at stake here.
Sure.
So we had a couple issues because initially when we came up with the idea to make that, our turnaround time was 7 days, 10 days. Okay, cool, I could live with that. So then we put that on our website. Well, the first batch came in and it was wrong. So we took 500 of the masks and donated it to a hospital out in Missouri that were begging for help. They could get no help from anybody. So we said, okay, hey, we'll help you guys out. So that delayed that even more.
Right.
And the turnaround time ended up being about 3 weeks, 14 days of the 21 days to actually get product in.
Right.
So, and people were so fearful of the virus at that time that they were taking that out on us.
Yeah.
We were one of the only manufacturers making.
I'm sure.
So, you dealt with a lot of backlash from that standpoint. People start trashing you on social media. Then people start saying that we're a scam because we never sold masks before. And I give kudos to our customer service team that we had about 6 people that were helping out with everything and the assault that they would take from people. We had a live
social media, right? I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
it's just it's you add a pandemic to social media.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It took about 2 weeks to be like, hey, if people are gonna bitch, who cares? That's on them. We're not scamming anybody. You could look us up. You could figure stuff out. We had a couple people report us to the Better Business Bureau, and then those same people ended up getting the masks and never called them back. And I'm like, Better Business Bureau is a joke anyway.
Of course.
It's about making money anyway. So. And then you get a couple making negative reviews on our Google, which is frustrating, but we have so many positive other ones. And we ended up with over 2,000 5-star reviews on that. So that was chaotic, though, pivoting then. And, we're now 10 months.
It always felt temporary to you.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I knew it was, so actually, I take that back. I told my business partners, I was like, hey, we're going to, this is a couple year business. I said, I think we could keep this for 3 to 5 years. I mean, it got to the point where we were spending $8,000 a day on advertising. It was that crazy, and we were making that much money in return. Wow. And then the big brothers of Facebook came in and stopped us, and they shut our business down.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we were slowly cranking. We ended up, I think one of our biggest days was $130,000 in sales we did on masks. And I remember waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning and looking at my app on Shopify, and it has a map of the world, and then it has little dots of people when they're online on your website. at any given time we had 200 to 250 people buying masks off of us, and it became an addiction as well. And one of Chris, my other business partner, I remember talking to him. He's like, I can't sleep because it's like a drug. And then all of a sudden, boom, the Facebook gods come out and they shut our business down. And
why?
It violated terms of services that they deem whatever they deem.
What terms of service?
Making money during a pandemic. So we then had to submit information, an EIN number, legit business information. We did. And then they stopped responding to us.
Oh, man.
So it was like, you see this, holy hell, we hit a gold mine. You know, if this keeps going at this pace and we could do this for the next 6 to 7 months, wow. Like we could do whatever we want financially forever.
Right.
And then we had to battle with them back and forth. We would then get up and running, and then we'd get pulled back. Then we'd get up and running, and it was back and forth with them for 6, 8, 10 weeks. At one point, PayPal held off, I think, $80,000 of our money and wouldn't release it to us. And they said it's going to take about 190 days for them to review our account to see if we could continue operating with PayPal. And that was another reason why I dove so deep into the political side, is because all these things with Zuckerberg on Facebook and how their Capitol Hill stuff that they're going through, and people don't realize what's going on behind the scenes on Facebook and these agendas. And then all of a sudden, all these other companies came up and started making masks, and we were one of the first ones to do it. And we got that pulled from under us pretty quickly. We ended up selling about 500,000 masks, though, in a 5-month, 4-month time frame.
Right.
It was awesome. It was pretty crazy. We just donated $25,000 to Allegheny Health Network, and it was for we partnered with an organization, Alexis Joy Foundation, which is at AGH, and it's for women that battle postpartum depression. And my sister had a baby, and I saw her going through some stuff, and I didn't realize the power that has on people. And it was something that I wanted to just help out in any capacity. And the founders of Alexis Joy have become close friends of ours. So we called them, said, hey, how can we help out? What can we do? And then they got us in touch with Allegheny Health Network. And Allegheny Health Network gave us an opportunity to donate some money and basically provide technology to households of women that have been battling in this capacity in some form or another. And give them iPads, we donated a boatload of face masks as well. But it was about a $25,000 donation. Wow. And we just the press release, I think, is going out today for that, ironically. And that was like the aha moment that, like, man, we pivoted like crazy.
Right.
The soup business has gotten crushed all year, but we were still able to survive as entrepreneurs and figure things out. And during a global pandemic, we were able to help out people. And it was just that's what it's all about. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
The philanthropic end of that. And I think fashion's always had a very strong philanthropic.
Sure.
I don't know. A portion of fashion's always been very I can't pronounce it. Philanthropic.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I struggled on that word a couple years ago on an interview, and I couldn't spit it out. So
philanthropic. When you talk about the soup business for you, let's wind it back a little bit here. The comfortable deep dive.
Yeah.
So how did it all start for you? What was as a child? Where was your interests at? Was it fashion when you were young too?
So it wasn't necessary. I always appreciated, like, I could never not match. So matching was always something. My shoes had to match this, had to match that, whatever. And then when I played football growing up, look good, feel good, play good, that type of thing.
Right.
And I always played better when I felt like I looked better from us. You wear the stupid gloves and the elbow things and the eye black and all that.
Well, my era was wristband.
Yeah, we
had wristbands. You were cool.
Yeah, we were big on those too. And so I just, I always liked it. Never really took anything and ran with it until I got into medical sales, which is what I previously did to this. And I worked in the eye care field, so ophthalmologist and optometrist. I'd sell lasers and cameras to eye surgeons and different things for about 5 or 6 years. And I always noticed that the top doctors and the top sales reps always dressed the best. And it just kind of was intriguing to me. And I remember I was in Missouri traveling for work one day, and I was doing a co-travel with another sales rep. And I remember this outfit. It was a solid pair of black slacks with a gray jacket.
Okay.
Had a little bit of pattern on it. I was like, man, that looks badass. And I went home the next week, and I was like, I'm going to just buy the same exact style and wear it around, for my territory. And this was before I even got into custom clothing. and I wore it out. And at that time, I was 26 years old. I was making about $250,000 a year, so I was doing very well financially.
Right.
And I thought money made everything, and I thought money was like the answer, and we'll dive into that here soon.
Sure.
So I just went out, bought that, and I was working usually from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock, so I wasn't working crazy. A couple of days a week, I'd work a little harder, but when I dressed well, I wanted to work longer.
You felt better.
Felt incredible. And I'd go into an office, and a couple of the staff would compliment the outfit, and I was like, "Oh, thanks, I appreciate that." And then I want to sit around them longer. I want to educate them more on the technology that I'm selling them, and I cared about my appearance that much more that it made me want to work harder.
Made you a better salesperson.
For sure. Yeah, the confidence that it instilled in me, it was pretty crazy to see.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, a little bit before then, I had a product that I invented and patented, which are called the proper knots.
Okay.
And it's a necktie accessory that slides over top of your necktie. So I came up with that idea in 2004.
It's called proper knots.
Proper knot. Yeah. So properknot.com is our website for that.
Okay.
And, my end play with that is to license that. We put logos and different things. So for professional sports teams, and who knows what's going to happen after the pandemic.
Okay.
But so that was what I really started getting into fashion. And that was my first solo bit as an entrepreneur, I should say, in fashion. And so I went out, I bought a sewing machine, had a lady that was making them for me at that point, and she was taking too long to get them back to me. So I just went out to Joann Fabrics, I bought a sewing machine, and I started teaching myself how to sew. So I would work all day on the medical side, and then I would sew proper knots in the evening and kind of go from there. Then fast forward into going to Missouri and seeing this guy's style and was impressed by it, came back home, bought that, and that's kind of where that transition happened. So I said, okay, I'm starting to understand manufacturing, production of fabrics, garments, things like that. I said, and I started buying custom suits at that point, one in Chicago, one in New York, and then I was never happy with the finished product. It just never looked good. The fit was always off. I was like, I could have spent, $700 at Macy's or $500 at Macy's and got a suit that I felt would have looked better. And I was spending $1,100, $1,200 on these custom suits. Okay. And I was just like, I could do better than these guys. I already know a little bit about this, so let me dive into this more. Okay. So I connected with a manufacturer in China at that time, and then my goal was, hey, if I could just sell suits to friends of mine, charge them $100 more, sell a couple of them, and then they're getting a suit for a couple $100. I'm getting free suits. This is great. Well, then it just kind of started growing a little bit, referral here and there. And at that point, I started putting stuff on social media that I was selling suits as a side hustle. And somebody connected me with a WWE wrestler named Titus O'Neil, and that was October of 2015. Okay. And I was like, wow, this is an opportunity to get in front of somebody that has, 500,000 followers and, right. A potential plug into the rest of the WWE. Right. So I met him at a hotel and next to the Penguins Arena at the Marriott. And he ended up supposed to meet him at 7 or 8 o'clock, and he didn't get there till midnight. He was driving in from Buffalo, 6'8" dude, 280 pounds. And
those guys can be late. It's okay.
Yeah, and so I was like, holy shit, this guy's massive. Like, a great human being, great personality and everything. And I was like, if I can make this guy happy, I think I can keep doing this. Okay. And so he ended up buying 10 suits off me the first night. And that was in the beginning when I was like, okay, this is my first client, first celebrity client. I have no website, no company, nothing. So I'm going to give him a deal.
Not even a name yet.
Nothing. Okay. I had the David Allen name because we had to have name tags and stuff, but that was really it. Okay. Nothing else. Okay. And so I sold all the suits to him. I gave him a discount at the time. And then, 4 weeks later, all the suits came in and nothing fit. And at that time I was still running around for my medical job. Yeah. So I was in a doctor's office and I get a call from him. He's like, hey, this doesn't fit. So I had to tell the doctor, hey, my mom's calling. I got to step outside. I think it's an emergency. Right. So I had to play that game because I was literally in the middle of a demo selling a product with that. Got it. But then I was like, hey, this celebrity that's calling me, I gotta be at their
priorities.
Yeah. So him and I built a relationship, and thankfully he was so understanding of everything. But, me as an early entrepreneur without any guidance, I was like, okay, cool. He FaceTimed me. I was like, all right, let me just reorder these because his tailor couldn't adjust them. There wasn't enough inside the garment to adjust properly. Got it. So I was like, all right, I'll just buy 10 more. Did the same thing, came back, didn't fit again.
Really?
Did that about
too tight, I'm guessing.
Too tight. He has issues with his shoulders and his arms, and after the fact, we kind of talked, and he said, look, he goes, there's not many people that can make suits for me. He has one guy in particular, and he likes to wear his stuff a little baggier, and I make them a little bit more form-fitting, which I can make it, however.
Of course.
I thought he looked better in my stuff than he did the other gentleman's, but whatever he wants, it's his prerogative. So it wasn't necessarily that the product really wasn't there. It was his appeal of that.
Okay.
But I didn't understand that, and I didn't know. But me, as a young entrepreneur that was just naive and didn't understand business, was making them 10 at a time. So then second order was already lost. Third order was already a loss. And I was about 60 to 70 suits in before I said, hey, why don't you make one, see if that fits, and then go from there. So
novel idea.
You know, it's just stuff that I overlooked because I was just so, hey, I want to make this perfect for this guy. And everybody that I work with, I just care about so much that I know our product is really, really good, and I want people to be happy because I know how good it is, and I know how happy people are whenever they get the right experience. So that was kind of early on, and that was the quick kick in the ass of like, this is going to cost a lot of money to kind of get this thing rolling.
Okay.
And then fast forward to January of 2016, I said, okay, I got to build a website. Got to keep things going. I'm going to open up a business account and go from there.
You're still working full-time?
Still full-time.
Okay.
And so then he called me one day and said, hey, what are you doing next week? And he was like, I think you should fly to Florida. The Royal Rumble's on Sunday. He's like, book a flight, come in on Sunday. Spend the week with me. You stay in my hotel room. You drive around in my car because he's from Florida, so he was driving everywhere. And, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to introduce you to everybody in the locker room.
Wow.
Well, then my dumbass, I book a flight. I go to the wrong airport, which I don't even think I've ever told anybody that story. I hired a driver who was a buddy of mine that had a driving company at the time. I felt so good. I'm in the back. I'm driving out there. We get out to Latrobe Airport, and it was a Spirit Airlines flight. And I'm like, oh, shit. They're flying out of Pittsburgh. So my first opportunity to go to the Royal Rumble and be all around all these athletes, I'm at the wrong airport and I missed my flight. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm freaking out. I'm scrambling, and then fortunately there was a later flight that got me into Orlando. I think it was in Orlando at the time. And I get in there like 20 minutes before everything starts. And I told him, I was like, dude, my flight got canceled. I'm so sorry.
Of course.
And you play that game. So the trip started out super rocky. And then, we go there. So I met, a rapper named Wale the first night. Rick Ross was there. Right. So I was like, holy shit, like these big name people that I'm trying to get into. So then what I realized was, even though wrestling isn't my crowd necessarily, men's fashion is growing pretty aggressively, and a lot of these guys obviously can't buy anything off the rack, and they need to dress well and look the part. So I just saw that there was a bigger picture, that it wasn't necessarily the wrestling crowd that I wanted to get in front of. It was the friends that follow wrestlers that are other celebrities and other athletes. And I said, that's the end goal. Right. And then I also thought, The Rock and John Cena and all these other guys, like if I could get to them, huge win in some capacity. Right. And, so Titus and I, we spent the 5 days. I think I sold 55 suits in 3 days to all WWE athletes. Wow. And then I came home from that trip, and that was the end of January, early February.
A hell of a good feeling.
It was so cool. It was so surreal, and it was like, okay, like this is something here, keep doing this. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how big it can get, but just keep going. Okay. And again, at very worst, you live a cool life now.
But you also had a really well-paying career.
Correct. Yeah. And that was my, so, backtracking a little bit, when I was, I was fired from 3 different jobs. Mm-hmm. My first job out of college, I worked at Federated Investors in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to be a stockbroker on Wall Street. And then I couldn't pass my Series 7 test, so they fired me after 3 months.
You too, huh?
It was brutal, man.
You too.
I got I think the first test I got like a 55 or a 58. And then the second test, I go and I was like, there's no chance I'm passing this. So I remember, I made good friends with a lot of people there, and I just packed my stuff, head home, and I was like, there's no way I'm passing. I got a 57 or something, and then was fired, and then just kind of bounced around a little bit. But so it was just an interesting start. But my goal in life was like, how much money can you make? that's success, right? Like, I'm young. The most people that drive nice cars, they got to be happy. They got to live these amazing lives. Okay. So my goal was, by 25, if I can make 6 figures, super happy. That means I'm successful. Then my next goal was by 35, if I can make 250 grand a year, I'm super successful. And then as I started making that money, I made 100 grand at 25 years old. And then by 26, I made $252,000. And then I was like, now what? Mm-hmm. It's not fulfilling. Mm-hmm. Money doesn't change your life.
Funny how that works, right?
Yeah. It made me quickly appreciate that money doesn't mean happiness. Money's not everything. And a lot of people with money probably aren't happy.
Yeah.
And that was the most rewarding experience that I've had in my entire life, was coming to the realization that happiness is truly about your self-worth, and happiness is truly about just being a good person and taking care of people. And if you can get anything on top of that, great. If you can live a life while orchestrating that, great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the coolest thing about all this stuff. So yeah, I did very well early on.
Right.
And I had a lot of people that doubted me. I barely graduated college. I think my sophomore year I had a 0.4 and a 0.6. I graduated with a 2.1 GPA from Duquesne. Mm-hmm. Didn't even know if I was going to graduate. Had nightmares after graduation about, hey, did I wake up and not graduate? And it wasn't that I was, I can't read very well from a understanding thing. When I was a kid, they changed the way they taught reading for a short amount of time, which my mom was telling me about that yesterday. And it makes sense why it takes a lot for me to read and grasp things.
Okay.
So I struggle in that capacity. So any of those long exams, I just not going to happen. I can't retain information that well. So I do struggle in that capacity. But I just always knew that like people doubted me a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, cool, whatever. You could
fueled
think,
you.
Yeah, go ahead. Because those same people are now, when I go out, they want a photo with me, or they want this or want that. And,
right.
It's humbling for sure, but it's also like, man, all you got to do is work hard. Mm-hmm. Bust your ass, work hard, and treat people well. And that's like the recipe. And money's not everything, man. It really isn't.
Yeah, I think it's always been the ultimate lure. It doesn't matter if it's this generation, prior generations, it doesn't matter. Money's always been the ultimate lure, but it's so unfulfilling.
Yeah.
You say that, and now somebody that's really struggling, you say that and they want to throw a dagger at you.
For sure.
But all money has ever done for me, in any capacity, when I had it, when I didn't have it, David, was it bought me freedom when I had it.
Sure.
And the freedom was worth it. But it took me years to understand that.
Yep.
It's like a little money helps you with freedom because you don't have to do things you don't want to do.
Correct. And I'm not saying money's not, you need it.
Of course.
You need it to survive. You need it to eat. You need it to live. You need it to day-to-day things.
Right.
But when you understand that the way that you live your life, who cares what anybody else thinks? Like, who cares? Who cares what car you drive? Who cares what house you live in? If you have a house, if you have a vehicle, if you don't have a vehicle, but you have access to get places, you're winning. Mm-hmm. You've hit the lottery by being born in the United States of America.
You think we're finally getting to really understand that more as these other generations are coming up, or are we going in reverse?
I don't think we're understanding. I think we live in a soft society now. Mm-hmm. I think masculinity has become negative now, unfortunately.
I would agree.
And I think the craziest thing about that is some of the most masculine people that I know are the most caring people that I know, and that would give everything for anybody, without a doubt. And, the term toxic masculinity is an absolute joke. It's frustrating because, you have to, in any capacity, whether it's sports, whether it's business, whether it's just living your day-to-day life, you can't be pushed around. Right. And life kicks your ass.
Yeah.
Life literally kicks your ass every single day. It is.
Life's hard. And the current state of affairs, it has been for a good decade or so, is that we have raised a generation of coddled kids, and most of them, I think, have turned out really well, but we didn't do them any favors.
Right.
And I can say that as a 55-year-old man.
Sure.
So I think in society, and getting people to understand what it takes to put in hard work, and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But they don't have even the slightest realm, most of them, of what it takes to get there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, go back 20 years, 15 years. If you were a plumber, or if you were any trade of capacity, you were looked down on, in my opinion, from what perception was.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't cool, right?
Yeah.
now in 2020, 2015 through now, it's cool to be an entrepreneur. Some of the most successful people I know are tradesmen.
Absolutely.
As I grow and, when I start...
Society needs trades.
Absolutely. And they're always going to. And, college to me is one of the biggest scams in the entire world. I think college is about, you learn life experiences, but I didn't learn a damn thing about anything in business. No, I cheated my way through college, just like a million other people.
Most kids do today.
Yeah.
And if they say they don't, they're lying to you.
Every test. That's what I did. Like,
the internet made that so easy.
Correct.
I mean, how could you almost not? I mean, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. The skill that they tried to instill on us pre-internet college and high school kids was to learn how to research, go find the answers. You open a textbook. Well, now the skills that they wanted us to do, they don't want the kids to do, and that is go research the answer.
Right.
Because now that's somehow cheating. There's a fine line there. Yeah. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down, but it's so different now.
Sure.
They're doing what they wanted us to do. We were too damn lazy to do it.
Yep.
But now they're doing it, and it's cheating.
Yeah.
How'd we get there?
It's so weird. Like, you look at how much it costs to go to college, and then you realize, like, okay, if I just started a business or do something there, I'm already way ahead of somebody that went to college.
Parents that came from my generation now have those kids.
Sure.
You see, and my generation can't still wrap their head around the fact that you can make it without college. I get it because I did it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm an exception. I'm an outlier. I think most of, I wanted my kids to go to school.
Sure.
There's something inside me, but I'm kind of okay if they don't.
Yep.
But I think I'm rare.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I try to think. I don't have kids or anything right now, but I do think in the future, like, I'm excited for when I do because, I know my dad was big on, like, my dad, absolutely incredible human being, very, very difficult growing up from a standpoint of, I was never allowed to sleep in on a weekend. Never. If I stayed up all night, it didn't matter. You're up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to work around the yard. Sunday, you got up to go to church, and then you worked.
Discipline.
He was a very disciplined individual, and if I didn't have that, again, your circumstances are very fortunate for different people and different things, and I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing if I didn't have the dad and my mom as well to instill the things that they did in me. So I give them all the credit and thanks in the world for that. But the discipline that it does take to do things, life will chew you up and spit you out, right? So I'm very fortunate from that aspect, that my dad was the way that he was. But I don't think when I have kids, like, I'm looking forward to, I had a landscaping business in high school. I had 5 yards, nothing crazy. Spent every dollar I ever made for that, right? Now I see the value in a dollar and making a dollar work for you in a different capacity. And I'm excited that where society will be in, 10 years, 15 years when I have children and all that stuff, and then grooming them to get into adulthood and things of that nature. I'm really excited for that because I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, I'm hoping my children have that mentality because I think knowing what I know and where my business is going, I'll be in a good spot where I'll be able to really guide them from an educational standpoint. I'll never give them anything for sure. Right. I'll take care of them, but they got to earn everything. And that's what I'm going to take from my dad and my mom's, way that they raised me and translate that. Because I think working for something and getting that feeling and that appreciation it can't be substituted.
Then I would definitely agree with you there. Talk a bit about the decision or when the decision was for you to leave corporate America and go on your own, and what kind of internal struggles you had at that moment as to when to do it and is it the right time and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so so back to 2016, which was 3 months after I had the first experience with WWE, April 1st, 2016, I was fired. So my decision was very easy. That was my official termination date.
Okay.
How I ended up getting fired was I was at a company for about 4 years. That was like my real big boy, made a lot of money job. I was with this one company for 4 years.
Okay.
There was a lot of changes in the industry and my sales started slipping a little bit and I just started losing interest. I knew that this wasn't for me. I had a really good rapport. My boss was a friend of mine. The whole company, I was friends with everybody.
Right.
I didn't want to leave that business and soil that relationship at all.
Got it.
So there was a competitor of ours that was newer, easier technology to sell, one product, and it was only selling to optometrists. So I was like, all right, I have a really good relationship with all these optometrists. So
Right.
let me just go that. That's going to be an easy route. If I could do this for 2 years, 3 years on the side, cool, I'll do that. Well, whenever I jumped ship to that company, one of the guys that left my company to go to that company prior told the guy that was hiring me, hey, David has this side business, just so you know. So when they brought me in for the interview, I just said, hey, I have this. Like, I'm not doing this. I'll do this after hours, and I'll do this on weekends, and I'll work for you guys during the hours. And they were cool with it. And well, then fast forward, ESPN did a story on Titus O'Neil, and they were talking about his fashion and his suits, and he dropped my name on ESPN, and my boss had seen, the segment of whatever. And it was like, I work with David Allen out of Pittsburgh. So then they started looking into it. At that time, my sales numbers were dipping for that company as well.
Okay.
So then what he did was, just like any typical Big Brother bullshit company, they pulled my phone record. And I remember, this is so crazy. I was in Ohio, and I was in a parking lot, and I was getting ready to walk into an eye doctor's office. And I shit you not, this is what happened. I called a good friend of mine in Chicago who was a counterpart of mine, and he was the territory manager for Chicago and the Midwest area, and he owned a couple successful gyms on the side. And I was like, Eric, man, I don't know what to do. The day job is taking away from my side hustle, and the side hustle is taking away from the day job. I said, I'm in trouble if I don't make a decision soon.
Right.
And he said, look, just hold on to this as long as you can. Like, it's hard. Like, just hold on. The minute I hung up the phone, I get out of the car, put my bag on, my jacket on, and I'm walking into the front door of the office, and I check my email, and I had an email, and I wish I would have saved it, and I didn't save it because I was just shocked. I had an email from my boss who was emailing the president of the company at the time, and he had a screenshot of my call record.
Okay.
And he said, hey, so-and-so, I just want to let you know I have David copy here. Take a look at the attached document. On these dates, David said he was here. David said he was here. David said he was here. But if you look at the call record, here's actually where he was.
Wow.
And I was like,
that's Big Brother there, huh?
Yeah, I was like, holy shit. I was like, I'm toast. So I called my former boss that I left. He knew what I was doing on the side. And he was like, dude, he goes, you're not gonna be here any longer. They're gonna get rid of you. And I remember I was driving home on the highway. I pulled off the highway after I'd left there, and music's off, and I just pulled off. I just started crying.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Like, I lost a job that was so easy, making $250,000 a year. And I'm, 30 years old, or 29 at the time, whatever I was. And I was like, holy shit, like, what do I do? And then I just sat there. I made a couple calls to some people, stayed on the side of the road. And then I just hung up, started driving home. I said, this is what it is. I said, now is the time to run with this. I said, they forced me off the ledge. Go get it.
Yeah.
Called my financial advisor on the way home. I said, hey, how much money do I have saved? And at that time, I just built a $500,000 house. I paid off a $110,000 student loan, and then I was fired all within a 2-year time frame. So I had no cash.
Okay.
I was just getting ready to start building my savings up again. And I had about $180,000 in my 401k at the time. And I was like, I got to start pulling it. Like, I just have to. So I had a little bit to go, about another month or 2 months. But at that point, I was paycheck to paycheck. My living expense was here. I depleted all my savings. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Like, I'll be fine. I'm making X amount a month, so I'll be good. Well, when your living expense is already there, and then now all of a sudden your income's gone, that goes quick.
Sure.
But I said, okay, $180,000, that could probably last me about 3 years or so, 4 years. I'll be good. Like, by the time that is ending, I'm going to be in a great spot.
Right.
That money probably lasted me 6 months. And because I just made so many mistakes, and I was just spending frivolously, giving suits away here and there. And not accounting for the fact that if I sell a suit for X, well, what about the alteration cost and this and that? And it was just the lack of understanding in certain things in business. Mm-hmm. And so I that money...
It's growing pains.
Absolutely. Yeah, that money really, really depleted quickly. Then I started, the debt started piling up. All my credit cards were maxed out. Cash was going away. And you fast forward to, this was April of 2017, so about a year later, that was like the darkest time of my life. I remember going to, I was just telling somebody else on another podcast recently, I took out an insurance policy, life insurance, and I never was at a point where I would have killed myself or done anything like that. And that mental illness and things of that nature it's a very real thing. I was very dark in a place of where my mind was all the time, because but I kept going because the revenue of the business kept growing and growing. We're 40% growth, the first year, second year, so on. And I was like, I got to make this work somehow. But I was making so many mistakes or bad decisions along the way that the money was just getting sucked out from underneath of me.
Got it.
And in April of 2017, there was a WWE had an event in New Orleans, and it was the WrestleMania. So it's their big event, and this was the first year that I was doing anything for that group. And I think I did 35 suits or something like that for that event. Right before then was the Chinese New Year. At that time, we were making everything in China. So for an entire month, the country shuts down, which people don't understand that. So what happened was I found a new manufacturer right before then. The first manufacturer we used was very difficult. Spoke no English. So imagine trying to do something that you have no background in Mandarin, right? It just was impossible. So this other gentleman came around. It was another Chinese gentleman, and he owned a factory, but he had an office in Los Angeles, and he spoke English very well. The presentation on his product was incredible. Well, we start switching all of our business instead of testing him out to see what it was like, and he ended up stealing about $25,000 off me. So it was so tough. It was so mentally defeating and draining that I didn't know how to get out of it. I had to take a couple personal loans out from people to front and get through some things.
Right.
And, but all business stuff related, paid all that stuff back. But at that time, I remember people started slandering me on social media because all David does is drink and party and hang out with all these celebrities and athletes, but he can't get me a suit. Well, I can't get you your suit because I don't know where it is. Chinese New Year's shut down. This guy stole all this from me. Sit tight. I promise you'll get your garment. You just got to be patient with us. And we had a handful of clients that we really had to hey, come on. And I don't drink. So the fact that people think I drink and party and all this other stuff, it's like, you have no idea what I'm doing running around and the hell that I go through.
Right.
Yeah, I'm at WrestleMania backstage doing all this stuff, but it is a grind.
You're doing business.
Nonstop. I'm running around to different stores in the city to get last minute things, doing this, doing that. But I remember I was leaving for my flight to New Orleans, and I think my flight was at like 3 or 4 o'clock. My one cousin had bought something off me, or I gave him some money at some point golfing or whatever, and it was like $150. And he was another medical sales guy, so he did well. He knew I was doing well financially, but I wasn't, because I just wasn't, and I wasn't in the world anymore. And I kept hitting him up. I'm like, dude, hey, my flight's leaving soon. Can I get that money back? And he's like, dude, it's literally like not much money. Can I get it to you when you get back? And I'm like, dude, give me my money. And then he shows up at my house like right before my flight and before I leave for the airport. And he looks at me. He's like, what the hell's wrong? And I just started breaking down and I started crying. And I was like, I don't have any money. I was like, I'm out. Like, wow. I'm flat out of money. Every credit card I had maxed out. My bank account was negative $86.40. So I got that tattooed on my arm.
Oh, right on. Right on.
I went to Giant Eagle, declined. No money. And I had money that was owed to us, but people weren't paying us because the back half of their garments weren't arriving.
Got it.
So I had to kind of piece all this stuff through there.
Wow.
So he ended up giving me about $300 cash. I prepaid for my hotel room on an app, so that was already taken care of. So I fly down there. I overnight 32 suits from Thursday to Friday, hoping that they fit. At that point, our manufacturing was shitty. The communication was terrible. Couldn't figure things out. I had no idea if this was going to work. And I was like, also, I don't know if FedEx is really going to be able to get this to me in 24 hours because that happens where they just drop the ball.
Really?
So I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to go spend WrestleMania weekend with all these celebrities.
And you come from China.
And those were coming, they came to Pittsburgh, and then I was overnighting those from Pittsburgh to China.
Got it.
And so I was like, I hope these fit. Like, I just hope they fit. the quality control was so bad back then. You could measure and put the measurements in, and for some reason, at one point, an entire month.
That's crazy.
Yeah, an entire month, the arms of our jackets were being sewn straight down instead of forward.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything, so anytime somebody put a jacket on, it was like squeezing and squeezing. So things like that would happen. But back to the story with this is, I get there and I'm like, okay, holy shit, I hope this works. And every suit that we did that entire event fit perfect.
Wow.
And I was like,
how about that?
Holy shit. So that was the whole trend of whenever I was losing my job, and then the transition of the first main experience, and then into holy shit, like this is all over for me. And it was terrifying. But ironically, a lady that worked in an eye doctor's office, she would randomly message me periodically. She would help out and volunteer at my fashion shows. Amazing human being.
Okay.
And when I flew back from New Orleans, no idea how I was going to get the money. I had enough to get home. And then at that point, if I didn't change things in 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, like I was in a pinch. And I land in Pittsburgh, and I'm driving back, and it was a snowy day. Snowed later that year for some reason. I was coming on the Parkway through Robinson, and she just randomly sends me a Facebook message, and she was just like, hey, David, she's like, God told me to reach out to you and said you're going through a very difficult time. Now, whether people believe in God, whatever, it is what it is. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, I started crying, and I was like, okay, cool, keep going. And fortunately, that next week, some garments started arriving. Slowly, you start digging out of this little bit of a hole, and then slowly, you start fighting. But I was certain. I was certain we would make through it, but there was that chance of holy shit, we're gonna have to go bankrupt. And we were still doing.
That close?
Yeah, we're still doing a couple $100,000 in sales at that time. So we were selling.
The revenue was there, and I think that's the biggest misconception people have with business, where the assumption of success isn't always the reality.
Correct. Yeah. And we were. And I just knew at some point it would get to where we wanted it to be, right? Like, it just, if you just sit back and you just dissect what's happening, hey, the revenue is going up. We got to stop making mistakes. We got to stop spending money where it shouldn't be spent. And if we keep with the trend where the revenue is going, eventually we're going to continue to make money and make money.
That's the recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really, the essence of your story is very common, because I think a lot of great entrepreneurs come from an area of desperation at moments. I got a unique story very similar, where you're not real sure it's, what am I doing moment. And you may have had it more than once.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, you got to be kidding me. I walked away from this to do this. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But do you remember when you also knew that, oh my God, it is working?
I knew from the beginning. I just trusted myself from the beginning.
Right.
And I just knew it was it wasn't an if, it was a when. When is this going to happen? And I'm still, if you ask me now, I'm still not where I want to be.
Of course not.
So I think it's a tough question to answer, but I just think if you just trust yourself enough, and you're willing to learn and you're willing to grow, and if the numbers don't lie.
Right.
They don't lie. I remember my dad told me early on, he's like, where are you at for your numbers? Where are you at for your numbers? I'm like, Dad, if I don't have a brand, my numbers don't matter. And I should have just from the very beginning.
Right.
And he didn't, again, it's your dad coming at you. And so it's tough to listen. And it wasn't always in the easiest way to talk to him about it. So I would just get pissed off and ignore it. But had I listened in the beginning and focused on the numbers as well as focused on the brand and building things, I would have been in a better spot sooner. Yeah. But the lesson that I learned will live with me forever.
It's a really interesting dynamic. What you just said, the harsh reality of the numbers, because they're harsh.
For sure.
Numbers are real and finite. And then that whole essence of growing the brand and the image and the massaging and all that, and the public relations, which is hard to quantify the value of that and how you get that value. That'll lead me into the next area of conversation, and I'm dying to get your thoughts on, and that is the world we live in today, of this social media and the way things are marketed, and that nasty term, which I call it nasty because it seems like a delusional pipe dream to me. Maybe you convince me it's not, but the influencer era. So talk a little bit, if you can, about how things are marketed today, the changes from traditional quote-unquote marketing to social media driven marketing, and what does influencer mean to you and to the business you're in?
Yeah, so social media is essentially the Wild West in business. It's an incredible platform. It's also incredibly negative in certain aspects. And I mean that from a bunch of different standpoints, and we'll dive into some of that here in a second. But from the influencer standpoint, there's a big difference between somebody who is an influencer, somebody who's a celebrity, somebody who's an athlete, public eye, whatever that is. And just because you are or just because you're a celebrity or you have a large following in some capacity, that means nothing. The easiest example is, women that are swimsuit models or Instagram models or something like that. If you can't take your audience and capitalize that into any financial gain, who cares? I don't care if you have 100 million followers. That means nothing. So you have a bunch of creepy guys staring at a woman that's wearing, nothing. How hard is that to get followers, right? That doesn't impress me.
Sex sells.
Yeah, correct. But so many of those people don't even leverage anything in that capacity and don't take advantage of the platform that they have. I know, Mark Wahlberg, obviously a huge name. He had a supplement company that failed. He's a movie star. He's not an influencer. Now, he's got a lot of other great stuff, and he's obviously a fantastic human being. But from a standpoint, if he was a true influencer, his supplement company would have been around, but it died very, very quickly. And there's probably other things behind this. Sure. I don't know him at all, and I've never dove into that. But I use him as an example because I knew he had the supplement company. Same thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had something years ago that just failed. But I know people that are, that have just, been in fashion or sold other products that are able to influence people to buy by the presentation of their social media pages, by the credibility and quality of their product, by people that they work with. So there's a huge difference there. And it's to me, it's very easy to tell who's a fraud. And especially in a world of today where it's like, everybody wants to pull something over you because that people think that you fake it till you make it, which I think that's pretty bullshit too, because you should always have a good product and you should never have to fake anything, right? You should just be able to organically earn people's right to want to follow what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting way to look at it for sure. But social media is it's crazy. And I have a marketing company. It's actually called Digital Blueprint Marketing,
right.
And I've learned a lot through I have two business partners in that company, and I have learned so much about tracking pixels and consumers' mindset, going down the sales funnel, taking them on this customer journey from hello to purchasing something or completing whatever the call to action is. So,
right.
It's a weird world right now with that stuff.
Back to the influencer thing, I think of The Rock, so he's got the stratospheric popularity, but he's also a marketer. He's a grinder when it comes to marketing, because that whole the skeleton yep. bull, that whole image he has, and then how that worked with Under Armour and so forth. He markets those shoes. I guess when he gets a pair of his shoes in, he personally sells the damn shoe on his Instagram page. He buys in, he gets it. Would you agree that he's one out there who uses his brand? I mean, there's uber wealth involved, but he's still out there grinding product, right? Yeah, so he obviously is the best in the world at it. He's got the largest following on Instagram, I believe. I think he gets paid maybe more than this now, but $250,000 per post if a business goes in and says, "Hey, will you do this or whatever?" I think it's something substantial to that nature. He has marketed and created himself in such an amazing capacity. He's obviously super great looking, right? He's a god from a physical standpoint. His work ethic is like none other. Mm-hmm. Even if he's obviously working that hard, but even if he wasn't, he portrays it on social media that he is, and he is. He's a family guy. He's always with his I think he has two kids, I think, definitely one. He always talks about, any videos with his daughter or whatnot. So he does that pillar of marketing. And then obviously the movie star side of things, and he has a likable personality. Right.
I don't know anybody that dislikes him.
Right.
And I think that's the key to this game is, can you portray who you are to somebody or who you want them to perceive you are, and get them to buy into that so that they trust you. And The Rock, I mean, if he says jump, a lot of people, how high should I jump? Or I want to be a part of what he's doing.
Yeah, you get the feeling it's very authentic.
Correct. Yeah, and I've met him a couple times. I know his mom fairly well. I see her at all the events and everything. His cousins, they're all WWE wrestlers. I mean, he's just a great family of people that appreciate the hard work and all that stuff. And you take it back to whenever he was living in his car and all that stuff. He had $7 as his production company. That's all he had to his name at one point. And he did everything that he needed to do to test the limits and to keep fighting. And that's why I think he is such a good person deep down, is because he came from nothing.
Not the converse to that, but let me throw another celebrity or social media celebrity that became larger than life and portrays an image that may or may not be true. You probably know where I'm going. Dan Bilzerian.
Yep.
So when I think of The Rock here, I put Dan Bilzerian over here. I think Dan Bilzerian's been fun to watch all this over the last couple of years.
Sure.
I mean, any male looking at women online, I get it. That's where he gets his following from. But I was always very skeptical of the story. And I think it's kind of coming home to roost recently as to what's going on there. It's
right.
All of it might not be a reality. Is Bilzerian symptomatic of the bigger problem with social media today? Or is he... What's your thoughts on him first, and then how does he fit into the picture?
I actually have a friend who's spent time with him, so I have a little bit of a understanding of him. To the degree of his success, I don't know that. Comes from a dad that has a boatload of money. I think he was a Wall Street stock guy, and I believe he gave
hedge fund or something.
Yeah, hedge fund. Yeah. I believe he gave him the initial coin to start whatever he's doing, and he's definitely made money gambling and done things.
That's real.
That's
that
real.
Aspect's real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know somebody that was working on his. He had a marijuana company, and that did not do well. Ignite. Yeah. And the reason being is women don't want to work with him. So my buddy that worked at the company was he's like, we can't get in anywhere. He has a big enough following, and I don't know much about their business or anything. He could probably be successul if he did it the right way, through direct to consumer advertising, things of that nature, which he does. But from my understanding of what I was told was the company does not do well at all. Again, does he do cool stuff? Yeah, shoots guns, hangs out with beautiful women all the time, lives this lavish lifestyle that people dream of.
Right.
But how much of that is real? I unless I was with him every day, I wouldn't have a clue.
Okay.
I know he admittedly was big into drugs and had a couple heart issues and things of that nature, and just lived the party boy lifestyle. He recently posted something showing the numbers of views on a lot of his stories, which was in the 50 million, 30 million range. So he's got interactions. He's obviously got a following of a lot.
Like you said, can he really monetize?
That I don't know. That I don't have a clue. I think if he did something in the gun world, because he's huge into that stuff, he may be able to draw something. But I also know there's gun connoisseurs that would be way better, that have way less of a following, right?
Got it.
Sometimes people you're just a partier and that's all we want to watch.
Yeah, well, it's entertainment.
Correct.
It's fodder.
Correct.
But there's always ways to monetize everything in society, I'm sure. I find it kind of funny. The show South Park back in 2009.
Greatest show ever, by the way, with everything that they do, but go ahead.
I think in 2009 or 8, they were so far ahead of the curve that there was a whole episode that was done on Facebook likes.
Yes.
And there was it MySpace? They were mocking.
I think it was MySpace. They mocked.
They were mocking MySpace, celebrities, people did weird things, and I have 12 million. They were implying that likes were somehow currency,
right?
And in the big picture, it wasn't. That was so far ahead of the curve, and here we are, 12 years later. And it's still kind of the same fucking thing.
Yeah. That's the irritating thing is, and I take it personal. I don't take it personal. I shouldn't say that. I get annoyed by people very quickly, based off of social media stuff. And what I mean by that is, I have clients that I work with that have millions of followers, and they'll tag me. They'll do this. They'll shout my company out. And I have 8,500 followers on Instagram. That's it.
It's a lot, though.
It's. I'm happy,
especially because it's organic and real.
For sure, and I'm super happy. So that's also a benefit, right? When it comes to influencers in some capacity.
No question.
I'll take somebody with 20,000, 10,000 followers and try to grow something with them if they're true, real people that want to follow that, versus someone that has 100,000 of whatever. It just, so social media doesn't work that way. There's all these bots that you could buy now.
Hopefully they're cracking down on that stuff, right?
They pop up again. They said last year that they were going to change the algorithm to do this, and it's going to remove this or that, and you still don't see it. So I just think there's always people that are gonna. It's easier to cheat and be ahead and look ahead than it is to actually get there. And it's just like, I forget who stated this, but it's easier to convince somebody of a lie than to educate them on the truth, something along those lines. And it's the same thing with social media. Yeah. You don't get followers just to get followers. It's if you I don't
especially when you're marketing a product,
right?
Because it doesn't really do you any good. I mean, I think there's certainly, to me, you need to have an understanding of the marketing within the vehicle, like hashtags and all that stuff. There's ways to really orchestrate a great campaign, right? Yep. To lure people with like-minded people or people interested. But a body's not a body for the sake of a body and a click and a click and a click. That really doesn't correlate to money.
Does nothing. It feeds an ego. I mean, we live in a world where people, have committed suicide because they don't get likes and stuff,
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. It's, and honestly, it was hard for me in the beginning when I was growing this, because I've gotten nasty messages from people telling me to die.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah. I'm pissed because I just went through and I randomly was deleting screenshots from my phone, and I was just literally clicking and dragging. I have 30,000 photos saved in my phone, which a lot of it's just bullshit that
sure.
So I went through and mass deleted things, but I have a folder on my phone that's called social media slander. And anytime I get something negative, I drop it in there.
You're right to save that.
I know.
Make it into a book somewhere.
Well, I deleted a bunch of the pictures the other day, and I was trying to show somebody. I was so pissed off. But, I had one instance where I was put on my Instagram story. I was watching, this was last year, James Corden, The Late Late Show.
Yeah.
And he's always stylish, great human being. Right. And the one day he had a suit on, and I took a picture of it, and I posted it on my Instagram story, and I said, this suit looks awesome. I said, if his stylist would have added 1 inch to the stomach area, it would have looked a little bit better, but great job, or something like that. Wake up the next morning, hey, for somebody that has shitty style and wears clothing 2 sizes too small, and his stylist is from, they're successful Los Angeles stylists, and you're a Pittsburgh nobody. And it's like, fuck off. Like, so I've learned, it was tough in the beginning when that stuff happened.
You gotta let that shit go, pal. That'll drive you insane.
Yeah, I've learned now, like, I don't care what I literally, and this is all, it's taken until the last 2 years. I don't care what anybody says about me.
Success will give that to you.
I don't give a fuck.
You get some success that, like, and you're experiencing that now, so obviously it's probably easier. And it's so hard, though. It's hard when you're a creative person.
Sure.
Your name is on your product. It is about someone's individual style and presence. That has to be an extremely personal sale.
Yeah, it is. It is.
More than pretty much anything else someone buys.
Yep.
So I can see where, any kind of criticism, it's just hard to grow thick skin. And God love you, because it's got to be hard in that industry.
It is, but I embrace it now, and I've
Can you learn from it?
For sure, absolutely. It continues to teach you to work the right way.
Right.
And I've had friends come and go, or quote friends come and go in the last several years. Other business owners that put on this persona of who they are, and it's like, and then you peel the layers back, and this guy did this. Oh, his daddy gave him this. Oh, okay, cool. Like, congratulations. You don't know what I've been through.
Yeah.
And I always look back, and the way that I'm at peace with everything, and the way that I don't care what anybody says, is that everything I've done since day one was it was morally and ethically correct, number one. Mm-hmm. I've worked as hard as I can to do that for somebody, or to earn something or build something.
Right.
And nothing was given to me.
Right.
So from that standpoint, like, if you have something bad to say about me, or you just don't know who I am, because I would do anything for anybody. And I get messages all the time. I'll meet people for coffee. I'll give them, hey, jump on a call if I can guide you somewhere.
Sure.
Because I didn't have that mentorship. I didn't have those things. And that's why when I built my brand, I said, hey, everything I do, I want transparency. And even the bad stuff I want to show. That's why I freely talk about the financial stuff. I talk about where I was financially to show people like, hey, it's not all about that.
Oh, I think that's so not only refreshing, but I think that's so needed.
Sure.
Because it's just prior generations of people and entrepreneurs that would hide all the bad. That's always been the thing. You only show the success.
Right.
If you're really interested in sharing your story and having, I guess President Obama said teachable moment. It's a great phrase.
It is.
A teachable moment for someone who might be listening to this that could have it might not even be clothing. It could be something else that they're struggling to do.
Right.
Someone that's making it and it has a viable brand, but the struggle you came from, people need to hear that.
Sure.
There's something really good from a humanity standpoint to share that kind of struggle.
Sure.
Do you think?
Yeah, and so these struggles that I've gone through have put a new meaning on the cheesy entrepreneurial phrases like embrace the journey, right? Somebody else is where they're at. You can't compare yourself to where they're at in their journey, right? Because you don't know what somebody's been through to get there. And that is the ultimate way to understand that everybody is at a different spot. And that's okay. I know one in my entire life, in everything that I've done, I know one entrepreneur that's done what I want to do. One. And he sells protein bars. Huh. Pittsburgh gentleman, started at I think 19 years ago, started a protein bar company out of his 600 square foot apartment in Brentwood. I think his companies were valued at $52 million and another one at $58 million or something like that. And he's recently sold pieces of it. He's the only person I know that has got to that level of fame and success or success by working his ass off. And it took 20 years. So when I see somebody that there's no way, I don't care what it is, unless it's this mass anomaly, which is not going to happen, you don't become a multimillionaire or very, very successful in 5 years or 10 years.
Right.
You just don't.
Right.
Because it's impossible unless you have a cash influx of some sort. If you gave me a couple $1 million, I guarantee you I could turn that into 20, 30, 40, 50 million in 5 years.
Yeah.
I trust myself from a business standpoint, and we're well on our way to doing some great stuff. But these people that pretend to do these things and and pretend to be somebody that they're really not, and they're the ones that don't typically treat people the right way either.
Of course not. There's the experience of having to earn relationships and build relationships isn't there. It's interesting to me. It's always the combination of fame versus legacy when it comes to business. If you have an influx of cash or you hit a lick, I think of the company. Great example of this was the company called Von Dutch.
Okay. Yeah, they made hats and all kind of trucking hats and
it's no knock on the entrepreneur, but something happened, very quickly for them. There was a huge influx of cash. Maybe a couple of celebrities grabbed it and helped him run with it, but the burnout was fast.
Sure.
And then you saw him at a discount store 2 years later.
Yep.
There's no legacy there. What you're describing to me, what you're doing is building a legacy brand essentially, and there's a story and a book of work there and a book of growth. That to me is real business.
No, and I appreciate that. That's my goal, right? I love what I do. I've been able to take something that I've found so powerful to be able to pay my bills with it, to be able to donate to other people, to help people, to give money to other people, to hire a team of people, to change other people's lives by coming on board and working with me. We have 6 people that all quit 6-figure jobs to work with us, and they're like happier than they've ever been. Their family says, I've never seen you guys this happy. And that's what it's all about. And I don't have an end goal with anything that I do right now. I don't. I love what I do. I've been able to see that my network is...
It's refreshing to hear that, because I'm going to tell you something. It's rare. And even if someone doesn't have an end goal, they pretend that they do have one.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to people that can't be real with who they are. Do I have an end goal? No. Would I sell my company? Maybe. For $5 million? No chance. For $50 million? Maybe. $20 million? Maybe. I don't know. if the opportunity presents itself, I'll entertain it. Right. But I love what I do, and I love the people that I've met through this. That's the coolest part. I've met some of my best friends in my life by doing this job. Mm-hmm. And I've distanced myself, not purposely, but from people I went to college with and high school with, because I just don't see eye to eye with what they're doing in their life.
Right.
And, even Rocco, who connected us, he's become a great friend of mine. And I met him by him supporting our business. So, I've learned that this suit business right now in my life is a vehicle to live a life, make money, take care of other people. Okay. I've also learned that it allows me to have a really strong network to start other businesses and other ventures and potentially partner with other people or start another product or company or business and be successful quicker than I have been in the suits, because I was building, getting the credibility. And now I think we've earned a name that's relatively credible. And I think we haven't even scratched the surface of where we're going to go with everything.
The word is opportunity, because connecting with people and networking is great if you take advantage of the opportunities that are there.
Right.
And I think that's the step that a lot of people miss. A lot of people's personality make them naturally a networker, but is it an effective networker?
Right. Well, that people mistake being a networker for being like outgoing. And it's a huge difference.
Big difference there.
I know a lot of outgoing people that I don't really want to talk to.
Well, some of the circles you must run in, there's got to be a shit ton of them there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
for sure. Yeah, you see, everybody has not everybody. I guess there's a lot of people that need things from me, or people that are even my friends that have the celebrities that have become friends of mine. I'll go and stay at their house and then run around with them and see the people that come out of the woodwork to take from them.
Right.
Right. And all those athletes, they're entrepreneurs too, like in their own capacity, and some of them more than others.
If they're smart, they are.
Correct. Yeah. Not all of them are, but there's a lot that do more than people realize. And they have to protect their brand and their name and their likeliness or likeness of whatever they've done and accomplished. So, you meet some interesting people, and a lot of people I've met have angles.
Yeah.
And I've gotten good at seeing through that, and I can vet people pretty well. I've had a couple people that have beaten me on a couple things, and it's cool. It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
You just never let it get that bad.
Is fashion? I had a very small look into the music world. Didn't like a lot of what I saw. But it's certainly, the music world falls under that entertainment umbrella, and I think a lot of what you do also can fall into the entertainment umbrella, because you're working with a lot of entertainers.
Sure.
And that becomes part of their persona, what you provide them. So your peek into that world is probably pretty broad sometimes.
For sure. Yeah.
When you talk about seeing people reaching out to them, like hanger-ons, is there an underbelly to that industry that you don't like? If so, are you able to stay away from it effectively?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at staying away from it. I don't get wrapped up in any of that stuff. I really don't. Because everywhere I go for what I do, it's all business.
Okay.
And I've fortunately found business as a hobby, and I've fortunately found business as a passion. So my passion and my hobby is fun to me. So when I'm doing these events and I'm networking, or I've done stuff for the Grammys, the Oscars, the ESPYs, Sports Illustrated award for John Cena won a huge award. So I've been around a lot of big names and a lot of big events. I've done stuff for Blake Shelton for The Voice, a guy for the MTV Movie Award, or Music Awards, or a Movie Award, excuse me. So I've seen a lot of that stuff. It's easy to get away from it and not dive into it. I have a couple friends in LA that are kind of like I get to see what they do.
Yeah.
And some of them, buy and sell reality TV shows or involved. So I get a lot of access to certain people too. And I'm pretty easy to decipher who's fraud and who's not.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the differences or the evolving marketing for your industry? Because I always assumed that there was a lot of there still was a lot of retail in fashion in general, because there's that experience, that visceral experience of trying on clothes. It becomes part of you sometimes, and I would think that might not lend itself to a pure internet experience, like a lot of industries have gone almost pure internet
right,
now.
For sure.
But you still have that tangible, visceral thing of feeling, holding, and wearing clothing that you can't do online.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah, and ours is all custom.
Yeah.
So we're actually launching ready-to-wear stuff, which means you just buy sizes and all that.
Yeah.
So that's where COVID has made us shift, right? So
because of less human interaction or the potential for
less human interaction, but I don't know how long till events come back, right? So events are our big bread and butter. Or offices where people go to work. If that doesn't come back, they're wearing more casual wear. So COVID has forced me to pivot in an area that I've wanted to for years.
Okay.
I just never had the time. We've been too busy. We've been growing too much, and we've been selling too much. So I've been able to stop and reassess the business and the direction we're going and make a move. So middle of December, we're launching like higher end hoodies, crew neck shirts, things like that.
Very cool.
So and we've had people asking for years, and I never had the time to do it. And now I do. One thing that we just launched was a virtual fitting program for custom suits.
Okay.
So nobody's really shaking up the clothing world from a suiting perspective. You have your gentlemen that are in business that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that are the old school, like a couple of the stores in Pittsburgh are like that, where they're not adapting at all. So their clientele are also in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? So as they progress and as they stop wearing suits, my generation, the 30 to 55 crowd, is where our real big sweet spot is. And then younger, we're preparing for them. But they're willing to try different things, okay?
Okay.
And they care about their fashion. They care about their things. I could tell you guys in the 30s, 40s, and 50s probably don't want to work with somebody in their 70s from a style perspective. And that's where we've had a lot of success is there's nobody really competing at the level that we are. The ones that are more technology-based clothing companies.
Okay.
So you take your phone, you measure yourself with the phone, which we've looked into that. It's not accurate. And also it's you take away the element of having a stylist work for you. So what we do is we launched it last month it's a virtual fitting program where we send you the measuring tape. You book an appointment on our online system and you sit down face to face on Skype with one of our stylists.
Pretty cool.
It's awesome. And I have a couple things that I want to do down the road that I think this is going to massively expand pretty quickly.
Okay.
But why I wanted to do this was, okay, yeah, you can have somebody measure themselves with an app. You could set the phone down, spin in a circle, hands up, and it measures you. But what about the perspective of a lot of men need help, right? And they need that style advice. They need that tips. We have a lot of clients that are single men that were divorced, and for years their wives helped them pick stuff out.
Right.
And a lot of men by nature don't have good style or taste.
True.
So my benefit and my thought process was like, how do we take care of these people, right? How do we put them on hey, I still want the human interaction.
Yeah.
So if they're not comfortable meeting, let's do it FaceTime or Skype, and let's do it through our program. And we still want to go to people's homes or offices. And that's what primarily we do is we bring the fitting to you. But we now are transitioning from only doing that to offering different ways to buy our clothing.
Okay.
And I think COVID has sped that up from a standpoint of, last year, I would have said there's no chance somebody in their 40s or 50s or 60s is going to want to say, hey, I'm willing to Skype measure for a suit. Not happening. COVID said, okay, hey, changing it up now. Now those people, because their day job, they were forced to do that.
Right. Now
they understand the technology, and now they're okay to try it. So we want to launch that whole program, which we're working on now, and we've launched is, hey, we'll come to you, come to your home, your office, you come to our office, whatever works, or let's do it virtually.
Okay.
Without losing the flavor of, hey, let me coach you through what event do you have coming up? What do you need the suit for? What colors do you like most?
It's still personal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Huh.
And I think we can scale massively with that.
Okay.
And I've been waiting for the right software, the right whatever. And I've looked at all of them and I don't want to go that route. I like the old school feel of measuring and figuring stuff out.
When you bought your first sewing machine, like what was a learning curve for you on that?
The first proper knot that I made took 2 hours.
Okay.
And I sewed it inside out. And whenever I got really good at them, it would take me about 11 minutes per proper knot.
Okay.
So there's a big learning curve. It would be, I would sew for 2 hours and then I would mess it up like fuck, and then I would have to stop and I would have to take an hour or 2 hour break and because I was so mad, and I was like, oh, you idiot! If you would have just did it this way, pulled it this way, it would have been fine. So that was hard. It was really, really challenging. And I hope I never have to touch a sewing machine the rest of my life. It was, I would go to Joann Fabrics, or I would go to, I guess Joann Fabrics is the main one. And
my daughter actually works there.
Oh, I probably saw her there at some point. I'd be in the sewing section, and it'd be me on a Friday night at 7:00 and, 5 or 6 women in their 80s. So a lot of the times they always looked at me goofy when I'd be walking through the aisles, but the bigger benefit of it was the lesson of just doing it.
Yeah, that has to be the value of it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I got a sewing machine tattooed on my arm because it was such
part of your story, right?
Yeah. I still have my sewing machine in my office. Still have all the stuff there.
Yeah.
I haven't sewn in a while now, but it was like I didn't want to do that. No,
Yeah.
Why would I want to sew? But I did because I wanted to understand, and I wanted to be able to. If I'm going to make this product, I need to know how it's made.
Right.
Because if I need to make it better, how can I make it better, and how can I talk intelligently enough about the product? And that was why I really wanted to get into it. It was an education thing.
Strictly men's fashions now?
No, we do women's as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we do women fashion. I was on the show Total Divas for WWE.
Okay.
So I did that WrestleMania of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Did you start out doing both, or was it strictly men in the beginning?
I did a couple women's suits in the beginning, but I just never advertised much of it because obviously their body's way different.
Yeah.
And the way garments lay on the curvature of a woman is far different. Our manufacturing at the early stages was not good enough for me to learn. Okay. And we would typically make a lot of mistakes on female garments early on. And, we're still learning, and we're doing a great job. I mean, I just did a suit for one of the Jaguars for his wedding. I'm doing his wedding party, but he also bought his fiance 2 suits for, she's interviewing for residency programs. And I flew down that's when we were texting, and I flew down to Jacksonville to deliver that to her, and it looked awesome. So we've got a really, really great product now. It's just taken us years to understand the dynamics of that. And we're still learning. We'll keep getting better.
To wrap this up, what is fashion to you? Big picture question. What is fashion to David Allen?
I think fashion it's a way to change somebody's life from a standpoint of everybody is an individual and everybody lives a different life. Everybody likes different things. Everybody feels differently about themselves, about their future, about their confidence. And I think the beautiful thing about fashion is it could be the difference between getting a job, not getting a job. It could be the difference between getting a girl or a guy and not getting a girl or a guy. It could be the difference between, hey, I just want to work harder. I just want to change my life in some capacity. And typically when you look presentable, people take you more serious and more respectful. And I think it's a form of art that people don't appreciate and don't embrace as much. I think they're definitely doing it more than they ever have in the past. Mm-hmm. And I think timing for us to be doing what we're doing is great. And I think we're at an early stages of men's fashion that's going to continue to evolve. Every press conference for the NBA or the NFL is a fashion show. Look, Cam Newton, he's doing some wild things, but I love it. And people dislike it, but
that's okay too, though.
For sure. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people
they're reacting.
Yeah, absolutely. People look at me and probably think I dress like a weirdo, which is fine. I do sometimes, but I love that. Uh-huh. And I think fashion is the ultimate way to express who you are without having to open your mouth. And in a world where we are instantly judged all the time by everybody,
right,
the way you look is your billboard of who you are as a person. I really believe that. And it's changed my life. It really, it's made my life incredible. I've
right on.
Every day is a Saturday for me.
That's a good phrase.
It's so awesome.
Coin that one.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I just and honestly, like, when you talk to any of our stylists that work with clients, the first time somebody gets a custom product made for them and they put it on, the look in their eyes, like, okay, that he or she gets it, and it's so rewarding. It's so cool. That's why we do it. There's no other reason. It's that awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
And how can people reach you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is David Allen Style. Allen is ALAN. DavidAllenClothing.com. Facebook's David Allen. So something in that capacity on pretty much all social networks. But David Allen Clothing's our .com is our big website, and then my personal Instagram is David Allen Style. So yeah, always love connecting with good people.
My friend, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, this was incredible. I could go another 3 hours if we had it. So
please come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got some other ideas on some. We're doing some panel shows this year.
Awesome.
It was supposed to happen earlier in the year, but 2020 is what it is.
Yeah.
Getting multiple people in a room, but when we safely can do that and everybody's comfortable, we're gonna open up to 2 or 3 more guests at one time and different backgrounds and diverse questions.
Love it.
So
love it. I'll come back anytime.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for all you're doing.
All right, thank you. All right, friends, we are out.